The story begins with a completely ordinary and somewhat clumsy teenager named Rick Riker. One morning, he is late for school and desperately chases after his bus. Somehow, he manages to stop it and get on, but the moment he enters, it becomes clear that no one is happy to see him. No one offers him a seat because, in truth, nobody at school likes Rick. Eventually, he sits next to his only friend, Trey. While sitting there, his eyes land on Jill Johnson. Rick is hopelessly in love with her and cannot stop turning around again and again just to look at her. Trey tries to make him understand that Jill will never notice him, but Rick refuses to listen and continues staring at her, completely lost in his feelings. After a while, the school bus arrives at an animal research center where the students are supposed to see some rare animals. Even here, Rick does everything possible to impress Jill. He approaches her and confidently tells her that he is a great photographer and can take incredible photos of her. However, photography inside the research center is strictly prohibited. Ignoring the rules, Rick secretly takes a photo of a bird, but as soon as the camera flash goes off, the bird accidentally catches fire. No one around realizes that Rick is responsible. Panic-stricken, Rick tries to put out the fire by stepping on the bird, but the bird somehow manages to escape and flies directly toward Lawrence, who happens to be Jill's boyfriend. Lawrence immediately loses his temper and is about to attack Rick, but just at that moment, Uncle Lou arrives. Uncle Lou is Lawrence's uncle and one of the main investors in the research center. He asks Rick about his parents, and Rick sadly explains that they passed away many years ago and that he now lives with his aunt and uncle. Upon hearing this, Uncle Lou gets a bit emotional and walks away silently. As soon as Uncle Lou leaves, Lawrence begins bullying Rick again. He shoves him hard, and Rick falls directly into a pile of animal waste. In front of everyone, he is completely humiliated and covered in filth. Trying to clean himself up, Rick grabs a nearby container thinking it contains water, but it is actually a chemical solution. Not knowing what it is, Rick accidentally pours the entire chemical over himself. He has no idea that the solution was designed to attract male animals. Within seconds, animals from all directions begin running toward him. Some jump on him, others latch onto him, and chaos breaks out everywhere. The students present are shocked and laughing at the same time as Rick once again becomes the center of embarrassment in front of everyone. In the midst of this chaos, a dragonfly suddenly appears and bites Rick, but surrounded by so many attacking animals, he doesn't even notice what just happened. Gradually, more and more animals continue to be attracted to him, making the situation even more awkward and humiliating. Instead of helping his friend, Trey pulls out his phone and starts recording the whole scene. His plan is simple: upload the video to YouTube and make money from it. Meanwhile, poor Rick is left there as the ultimate laughingstock in front of everyone. After a while, the trip ends and all the students return home from the research center. By then, Rick is completely exhausted and weak. Somehow, he manages to get home, where his aunt and uncle are waiting for him. His uncle casually tells him to feed the fish. Rick walks toward the fish tank, but suddenly feels nauseous and vomits directly into the tank. He is so exhausted and tired that he barely reacts. Without saying much, he crawls to his room and collapses onto his bed, falling asleep instantly. At the same time, the story takes a major turn. Uncle Lou is shown inside a laboratory surrounded by a team of doctors. It is revealed that he suffers from a terminal illness and, according to the doctors, he doesn't have much time left. But Uncle Lou is not someone who accepts defeat. For years, he has been working in secret with a scientist on a special machine that could cure him. Ignoring the doctor's warnings that the machine is incomplete and dangerous, Uncle Lou orders it to be activated. He forces himself into the machine despite all objections. As soon as the machine starts, a loud explosion echoes through the lab. Those present begin to laugh, assuming the experiment has failed. One of the scientists even mocks Uncle Lou, but suddenly, something terrifying happens. Sitting inside the machine, Uncle Lou grabs that scientist's hand and begins to drain his life energy. In seconds, the scientist collapses and dies. At that moment, Uncle Lou realizes the truth. The machine actually works. He understands that as long as he keeps absorbing the energy of other humans, his illness can never kill him. From that moment on, Uncle Lou becomes more dangerous than ever. On the other hand, Rick is still at home sleeping, unaware that his school is holding its annual function that very day. The atmosphere in the hall shifts the moment Stephen Hawking takes the stage. There is a profound irony in the silence. A man who cannot speak with his own lungs is about to deliver a message that resonates louder than any shout. The students listen intently, completely focused on his powerful words, but Rick's attention is elsewhere. Even during the event, he is busy trying to impress Jill. In the middle of all this, he accidentally bumps into Lawrence again, which instantly sparks his anger. Suddenly, something strange happens. Rick's hand gets stuck inside a nearby sink, and no matter how hard he tries, he cannot pull it out. When he finally applies force, the entire sink detaches and falls directly onto Lawrence. Furious, Lawrence runs toward Rick to hit him. Rick immediately starts running to save himself. While escaping, he bumps into a burly man, and this time, something even stranger happens. Rick's hands get stuck to the man's body. He struggles desperately, but his hands won't let go. When he finally manages to break free, the man's clothes tear away with him, leaving everyone present in complete shock. No one understands what is happening to Rick. It becomes clear that something unusual has awakened inside him. Terrified and confused, Rick runs out of the school. One question repeats in his mind. Does he really have superpowers? To discover the truth, he tries to climb the wall of a nearby building. The moment he touches it, his hand sticks to the surface and he begins to climb effortlessly. Seeing this, Rick is stunned. Now he is convinced that something extraordinary has happened to him. Just then, he notices a woman walking her dog across the street. At that same instant, a truck is heading toward her out of control. The driver has lost control and the brakes have failed. The accident is seconds away from happening. Without thinking, Rick jumps forward and shoves the woman hard out of the way, saving her life. But he himself is hit by the truck. The people around begin to scream in fear. However, when the dust settles, Rick is standing there completely unharmed, without a single scratch on his body. The truck is totally wrecked, but Rick is perfectly fine. The crowd is stunned by what they see. But then Rick turns around, and a horrifying truth is revealed. The woman he had pushed to save accidentally falls into a wood chipper due to the force of the shove and dies instantly. For Rick, this moment becomes a devastating shock. When Rick gets home, he excitedly tells his aunt and uncle that he has gained superpowers and believes it all happened because of the dragonfly bite. At first, it sounds unbelievable, so to put him to the test, his uncle suddenly attacks him with a knife. But the moment the knife hits Rick's body, the blade bends instantly. Rick doesn't receive even a scratch. Now, even his uncle is convinced that Rick truly possesses extraordinary abilities. After this, we are shown a glimpse of Rick's childhood. One night, he was returning home with his parents after seeing a show when a group of thieves attacked them. Trying to protect his parents, Rick jumped forward, but in the chaos, he himself accidentally caused their deaths. As his father lay dying, he handed Rick a ring. That same ring is still with Rick today, and it might be hiding the greatest secret of his past. Filled with anger and frustration, Rick throws the ring away, but surprisingly, it comes flying back to him on its own. Rick cannot understand how this is possible. Just at that moment, Jill arrives. She tells Rick that she is no longer happy with Lawrence and wants to go out with him instead. But Rick completely misunderstands what she is trying to say. At that same instant, Lawrence arrives in his brand new shiny sports car. Jill looks at Rick and says that if he had a car like that, they could have gone for a long drive together. With that said, she leaves with Lawrence. Rick looks at his old broken bicycle and realizes he could never afford something like that. Later at home, Rick starts searching the internet and finds information about a professor who runs a special school for children with unique superpowers. Determined to discover the truth about his own abilities, Rick decides he will meet this professor and finally find out how powerful he really is. The next day, Rick decides that if he wants to impress Jill, he needs a sports car. So he goes to the bank with his aunt and uncle to apply for a loan. But just as they arrive, a group of robbers bursts into the bank and begins stealing the money. Panic spreads everywhere. Rick manages to get his aunt to safety, but something strange happens. The robbers cannot open the bank doors to escape. Rick clearly has the power to stop them, but instead of capturing them, he secretly helps them get out so they can flee. On his way out, Rick notices a crowd gathered around a small monkey performing tricks in the middle of the street. Suddenly, he hears his uncle scream in pain. Rick runs toward him and finds his uncle in a very serious condition. Within moments, a medical team arrives and quickly takes his uncle to the hospital. Once again, Rick's life takes a dramatic turn. Meanwhile, Uncle Lou is sitting alone in his office, admiring his reflection in the mirror, clearly pleased with how strong he looks. His assistant enters the room, but suddenly Uncle Lou begins to feel weak again. Without hesitation, he grabs her by the wrist and drains all her life energy. In seconds, she dies, and Uncle Lou regains his strength. Calmly, he hides her body inside a cabinet. It is now clear that to survive, he is willing to kill anyone. Back at the hospital, Rick visits his injured uncle. After everything that has happened, he finally decides he must meet the mysterious professor he read about. He meets Professor Xavier, who runs a secret school for children with special powers. The professor takes Rick to the school, where he sees several children and adults who look completely normal, but each possesses strange abilities. Some can fly, others can move objects with their minds. They all look like real-life superheroes. Then, Professor Xavier introduces Rick to his wife. Mrs. Xavier is holding what looks like a doll in her hands, but suddenly the doll raises its hand and throws the professor across the room. It is then that Rick realizes it is actually their small son, who also has incredible strength. Mrs. Xavier, clearly irritated, scolds Rick for not even having chosen his superhero costume on his first day and orders him to pick an outfit immediately. After this, Rick designs his own superhero suit, a green costume with a Dragonfly logo because he is convinced his powers came from that insect's bite. Wearing his suit for the first time, he climbs onto a rooftop, but suddenly, another superhero appears there, wearing an outfit surprisingly similar to Rick's. This hero claims that rooftop is his usual spot and that he sits there every day. Rick calmly suggests they can simply share the space. The moment becomes a bit awkward, but funny at the same time. And this is where Rick's superhero journey truly begins. The next morning, Rick goes for a job interview at an office, hoping to earn money. During the interview, he proudly shows the HR manager photos of himself in his superhero suit, trying to impress him. Instead of being impressed, the manager rejects him immediately. At that same moment, a man runs into the office, shouting that a university is under attack. Rick quickly realizes it is his own university. Without saying a word, he suddenly disappears from there. Meanwhile, chaos has broken out at the university. Uncle Lou has completely transformed into a supervillain, wearing a silver suit. His dangerous plan is to drain the blood of young university students and use it to create a powerful serum. Just as his attack begins, Rick arrives on the scene in his superhero suit. Finally, Rick and Uncle Lou face each other, and an intense fight breaks out between them. Uncle Lou throws sharp blades at Rick, but his suit is so strong that the attacks have no effect. Gradually, Uncle Lou realizes he cannot defeat Rick in this battle. With no other choice, he escapes from the scene. Nearby, Jill is also present during the chaos. She is deeply impressed by this mysterious superhero who just saved everyone, unaware that Rick is actually behind the mask. That night, Jill is leaving a theater when Rick follows her silently, hoping to finally talk to her. But the moment he stands in front of her, he completely loses his confidence. He becomes shy, nervous, and unable to speak properly. Jill herself starts the conversation and tells him that she was actually hoping Rick would ask her on a date. Hearing this, Rick feels so overwhelmed that he can't even answer clearly. Disappointed and confused, Jill walks away, still not knowing that the shy boy before her is the same superhero who saved her life. Shortly after, a group of thugs begins following Jill. Just when the situation starts to look dangerous, the Dragonfly superhero suddenly appears. Rick, in his suit, easily defeats the criminals and once again saves her. Jill feels relieved and grateful, thanking her mysterious hero without realizing that Rick is behind the mask. Meanwhile, Uncle Lou is inside his laboratory examining his machine. It is then that he discovers a terrifying truth. If he absorbs the life energy of 47,000 people using the machine, he will never die. He will become immortal. Without hesitation, Uncle Lou decides he is willing to sacrifice 47,000 lives to achieve eternal life. Shortly after, Rick's aunt invites Jill to dinner. During the meal, Jill openly admits she truly admires the Dragonfly superhero because he has saved her twice. She even confesses she might be falling in love with him. At that very moment, Lawrence arrives along with Uncle Lou. Meanwhile, Rick secretly slips into his room, still wearing his superhero suit. He is in the middle of changing when Uncle Lou suddenly enters his room. Rick's identity is about to be exposed. Uncle Lou already suspects the Dragonfly superhero is none other than Rick, and he has come to investigate. He searches the room carefully, but Rick ingeniously manages to avoid being caught each time. Finally, Uncle Lou leaves, unable to confirm his suspicion for now. Moments later, Uncle Lou joins everyone in the dining room, where Rick is already sitting in his normal clothes. Suddenly, Uncle Lou notices a wound on Rick's hand. He calmly asks him how he got that injury. Rick quickly lies, saying he got into a fight with a guy, but Uncle Lou recognizes it instantly. It is exactly the wound caused by the blade he had thrown at the Dragonfly superhero. In that moment, all his doubts vanish. Now he is completely sure that Rick is the masked hero. Suddenly, the atmosphere changes completely. Uncle Lou reveals his true supervillain form. Now, he is totally convinced that Rick is his enemy. At the same time, Rick realizes that Uncle Lou hasn't just come to confirm the truth, he has come to kill them all. Rick tries to protect Jill and himself, but in a panic, he loses his balance, falls, and is knocked unconscious. In the midst of this chaos, Uncle Lou kills Rick's aunt. Sometime later, Rick arrives at the hospital. He wants to tell his uncle the painful truth that his wife is no longer living. However, the doctors warn him that his uncle's condition is extremely critical, and any shocking news could be fatal. Unfortunately, another careless doctor reveals the news directly to his uncle. Upon hearing this, Rick's uncle is completely devastated. A few days later, we see Rick sitting silently at home. Following his aunt's death, he is emotionally broken. He barely speaks, remains lost in sadness, and cannot concentrate on anything. Soon, his uncle arrives along with Trey. His uncle gives him back the same ring and reminds him of its true meaning. He tells Rick that he is a superhero, and superheroes don't give up. Their duty is to save people, no matter how difficult the situation. He also explains that the supervillain plans to kill thousands of people, and the only one who can stop him is Rick. Rick admits he wants to help others, but every time he tries to do something good, everything goes wrong. Just then, news appears on television about a massive convention being held in the city. Everyone understands immediately that such a large event would be the perfect target for the supervillain. Without wasting time, they head to the convention center. Uncle Lou is already there. Rick still has no idea that he is the true villain. He directly asks Uncle Lou who the supervillain is. Lying calmly, Uncle Lou points to a monk on stage and says, "That is the supervillain." Believing him without question, Rick quickly puts on his suit and begins attacking the innocent monk. Taking advantage of the confusion, Uncle Lou slips away and finally appears in his true supervillain form. Now the real battle begins. Uncle Lou, at the peak of his powers, launches a brutal attack against Rick and causes the entire ceiling to collapse on him. Somehow, Rick survives and pushes the ceiling up with all his strength, but it falls back down, trapping him underneath. Determined to finish him off, the supervillain throws sharp blades toward Rick. At the last second, Jill runs forward and stands in front of him. She has fallen in love with the Dragonfly superhero and, without hesitation, risks her own life to protect him. The blades hit Jill, leaving her gravely injured. Seeing Jill hurt, something inside Rick explodes with rage. He picks her up and runs to the rooftop, where Uncle Lou has already activated his machine and is draining the life energy of innocent people. Gathering every bit of courage, Rick moves toward the machine. Using his own power, he manages to restore Jill's life. Slowly, she breathes again, but Rick realizes there is almost no time left. In just a few seconds, the supervillain will become immortal, and if that happens, the entire world will be in danger. Blades continue flying toward him, but Rick keeps moving forward without fear. With a final burst of strength, he reaches Uncle Lou and launches his final attack, destroying the machine itself. A massive explosion shakes everything, and with the destruction of the machine, the supervillain's reign comes to an end. After the explosion, Rick and Jill begin to fall from the rooftop. As they fall, Jill notices the ring on Rick's hand, the same ring he always wore. In that instant, she understands the truth. Rick was the Dragonfly superhero all along. She realizes that becoming a true hero isn't about strength or a costume. A real hero is someone who stands up at the right time, no matter how broken they feel inside. And with that, Rick's crazy, funny, and surprisingly emotional journey comes to an end.